something that an idea that I had to come around on because McCarthy, 60 plus years old, a retread head coach, two things that I didn't want in my next Steelers head coach. But since the press conference, since the coaching staff was built, I have come around to an extent. And because McCarthy won me over in 2026, and because McCarthy has a proven track record of developing quarterbacks, yeah, I'm excited for what the guy can accomplish as the Steelers head coach. If the coaching tenure for Mike McCarthy only lasts 5, 6, 7 years, but in that time frame, he drafted and developed the next franchise quarterback, it's a victory. It's a hiring win. But right now, I feel like I could have been the coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the same things would have happened. Yes, that's hyperbole. No, I'm not a football coach. Never have been, never will be. But I draw that comparison because we know how this movie ends. We've always known how this movie ends with this core of players, with TJ Watt, with Cam Hayward, with Alex Highsmith, with the veteran group of guys that they have in the limbo that they've played at the quarterback position post-Ben. We know how it ends. Good enough to get in, nowhere near being good enough to compete, and getting blown out in the playoffs if you get there. And to an extent, I feel bad because I remember we're coming up on me being back at the Fan for 2 years as a part-time host. Worked here in college, came back in 2024 to help out with the part-time stuff. So I was here for the 2024 season. I was here for the Russell Wilson, Justin Fields combination. When they were 10-3, I hosted shows and said I think they can compete. When they were down the stretch post-Ravens game this year, first Ravens game this year, when it seemed like the fate of the season was hanging in the balance, and they won, and then they beat Miami, and then they beat Detroit. Yeah, I let the optimism creep back into my programs. And I apologize for that because I knew how the movie ended and I failed to see it. And that's part of probably because new quarterback, right? 2024, Russell Wilson catches fire, new guy, not Pickett, not Trubisky, not Rudolph. Okay. And then he fizzles out. We know how the movie ends. Aaron Rodgers, new face, optimism, screeching halt. Right now, it seems like Aaron Rodgers is going to be the quarterback of the Steelers in 2026. So you're not going to be getting any, maybe this time it's different from me at all this football season on this radio station, because it won't be. Yeah, the head coach is different. Yeah, the coaching staff's different. The scheme, at least on offense, will be different. And I said at least on offense because part of the reason why I don't think it'll change is because of something McCarthy said in his press conference. Man, yeah, the offense is going to be a little bit different. Yeah, the head coach is different. But with Aaron Rodgers at 43 years old, there's only so much that they can do this offseason that makes me think it could be different right away. Now, it's not to say that I'm not at least a little bit excited for this offseason for the Steelers. That's not true. There are some things to potentially be excited about offseason 2026. Number one, the draft's here. That doesn't necessarily pertain to the Steelers solely, but it's still pretty cool. I have a feeling it's going to be an absolute cluster, you know what, and it's going to be impossible to move in this city for a whole week. But it's on tap to be the greatest economical event in the history of the city of Pittsburgh. On paper, nothing but good for the city, you hope. So that's awesome. And more Steelers-centered when it comes to the draft. They've got a chance to put the holy crap, what are we doing at wide receiver conversation to bed. Steelers insiders all week on this station, all offseason on this station, talking about, oh yeah, they acquired all this draft capital thinking they would move up in 2026 for a quarterback. Obviously, nobody's moving up in 2026 for a quarterback because of the way the class shook out, but that doesn't mean they can't move up. I flirted with the idea of moving up for Caleb Downs. Very aggressive. Probably not going to happen, but they can still move up. And they can move up to take a wide receiver. Ray Fittipaldo, who I love and respect in this business, Steelers beat writer for the PG, was on earlier this week and talked about the classes of wide receivers in this draft class. Sections, I should say. Class, might have jumbled the sentence there. Too much of that word. There is the top tier section and then the rest. And I think it's a good wide receiver class. But between Lemon, Tyson, and Carnell Tate, that's your big three. If they move up and draft one of those guys, one of those three guys, their future in the NFL is wide receiver one. And in a perfect world, the Steelers draft their immediate wide receiver two that eventually becomes the top guy. That's what George Pickens was. George Pickens was drafted in the second round and filled a need right away at the position and then eventually became wide receiver one over Deontay Johnson. If they draft one of those three guys, Mekhi Lemon from USC, Carnell Tate from the wide receiver factory that is Ohio State, and Jordan Tyson from Arizona State, all three of those guys have the potential to become wide receiver one of the Steelers, and DK Metcalf goes to wide receiver two. Probably won't sit well with Metcalf, and that's a bridge that you'll have to cross when you get there, but hopefully they have to cross it.